Hello again, Year 9, it's Mr. Sacco, and I'm doing again another tenses practice with you, and this time we are looking at the present tense. Now, some of you might have watched the present tense presentation that was specifically for your speaking and your photocard responses, so do have a look at that, but in today's lesson we're going to look a little bit more at probably your writing, but also at different forms of saying what someone else did in the present tense. So let's make a start. So quickly, I'm just going to talk you through the rule for the present tense. Hopefully you've remembered that we have two kind of present tense versions in English. So either, if we're looking at the example here, things like I am talking, I am chatting, and I am laughing, which all describe something that you're doing right now. Or I talk, I chat, and I laugh, which might be something that you do in the present but regularly. So I talk to my mum on the phone every day, for example. So in German, only one of those versions of the present tense exists, and we only use that one. The other one does not exist, and we cannot translate it literally from English into German, or we risk losing marks, which is the top one here. So this is what we call the continuous present tense, where we're saying I am right now talking, right now I'm chatting, and right now I'm laughing. Does not exist in German. Instead, it's very straight to the point. I talk, I chat, I laugh, which in German would be ich spreche, or ich plaudere for I chat, or ich lache. Okay, so you need to remember that in German we never translate this part I am. Okay, so you will recognize that I am in German in general is ich bin, but we only use that when we describe, for example, our age or what we look like, or our character or personality. Okay, so we don't say I am doing something. It's always I do, I talk, I play, and so on. Okay, so like I said before, we wanted to look at talking about others and what other people are doing. So in German, what we need to do then in the present tense is we will have to change the verb endings. That means we take our verb in the infinitive, so in the version that you find in the dictionary. Often they end in en. We take off the en and then we add on the different endings. Now, lots of you hopefully remember this little phrase that helps us with this, which is every strict teacher ends enjoyment. And this is how we can describe what other people are doing. Okay, so we've got ich, which is I here, then we have du, which is you. It's very important that you know these forms because these are obviously the way that you will see them addressed to you. So either in a writing exam or in a speaking exam, your teachers are going to ask you your questions in the do form. So a lot of your verbs will have an ST ending. You need to make sure that you recognize them and then that you know that you have to change them into an E ending. Okay, then we have sie, es, which is he, she, it. Wir, which is we. And sie, which is they. Very careful here. We've got sie twice, so we've got it to say she and we've got it to say they. As you can see, the main difference here in how to tell whether it's she or they is you need to look at the verb ending. So if it ends in a T, it's going to be she, and if it ends in en, it's going to be they. So let's have a look at two verbs where we can see those patterns. So the first one is spielen, which for each of these pronouns, for these persons, turns into either ich spiele, du spielst, sie, es spielt, wir spielen, and sie spielen. Okay, so particularly with wir and sie at the end, good thing is they've got the same ending as the infinitive. So if we're stuck for kind of ideas or making our writing a little bit more complex, adding wir on, so talking about you and your family or you and your friends, is a lot easier if you remember that wir also has the same ending as the infinitive, so en. And then we've got another example here, which is tanzen, to dance. So ich tanze, du tanzt, sie, es tanzt, wir tanzen, and sie tanzen. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a listening again. If you've watched any of the other tense practice videos that I've done, you'll be familiar with this for now. So take some time to read these sentences. You may want to pause the video here. So make sure you really familiarize yourself with them. They are not all in the ich form. In fact, there's only one. So you need to make sure that you really listen out for the endings here. All I would like you to do, and you can do this on some scrap paper or you can say it out loud, is after I have read out one of these sentences twice, I would like you to just quickly work out which number sentence it is. Okay, let's make a start. So sentence number 1. Wir machen unsere Hausaufgaben. One more time. Wir machen unsere Hausaufgaben. So this was sentence number 3, which is we do our homework. Now, as you can see, we've used machen here, which kind of can also mean to make. In German basically we say we make our homework. Okay. Unsere is maybe something that you got a little bit stuck on, and you may have not recognize that straight away, but if you look at the whole sentence, if you look at the fact that we've got wir at the beginning, it makes sense that unsere is our homework. Okay, next sentence is du hörst in deinem Zimmer Musik. Du hörst in deinem Zimmer Musik. And this is sentence number 2. So you listen to music in your room. Zimmer is your room. Next sentence. Sie spielt jeden Tag am Computer. Sie spielt jeden Tag am Computer. So this is sentence number 5. Now, as you can see, both sentence number 5 and 6 are using sie at the beginning. So this sentence will translate as she plays on a computer every day. The reason that I know that it's she, not they, is because I have looked at the verb, which is spielt here. It's the second idea. And I can see that I've got T at the end. Okay, so that tells me that it's she plays, not they play. Now, it does here say jeden Tag, which is every day, and this is an example where it is in the present tense, but it's repeated, so you're doing it every day, so we are able to use the present tense in this as well. Okay, and the next sentence. Ich kaufe in der Stadt neue T-Shirts. Ich kaufe in der Stadt neue T-Shirts. Okay, this is sentence number 1. And I hope that you are able to hear the endings when I'm using the verbs. So a little challenge might be that whilst you're listening, try not to look at the video and just write down the verb that I'm saying and practice those endings. Have you got the right ending that I'm saying? Okay, second to last sentence. Geht in die Schule. Geht in die Schule. This is sentence number 4, and that is he goes into school. Okay. And then our last sentence. Sie spielen mit ihren Freunden Fußball. Sie spielen mit ihren Freunden Fußball. So this obviously is sentence number 6 at the bottom here. And again, I've got sie at the beginning here. So when I am in an exam, I need to be very careful that I don't go straight for she and then disregard the rest of the sentence, but I need to look at every part. So I need to look at the verb, which is luckily is in, it's the second word as well as the second idea. Remember that sometimes a verb in a German sentence is not the second word, but it is the second idea. And I've looked at the ending, and that's en combined with sie. Sie spielen tells me it's they play. And then we've got this word here that might trip us up slightly, which is ihren, and that basically means with their friends. So be very careful that your sentence makes sense. Translate it back from English into German and check that you've got every single part of this right. You will get a lot of translations in your exams that focus on exactly that. So they will check that you know the verb endings, that you read the sentences carefully and make sure that you know which pronoun or which person they are talking about. So whether it's I, you, he, she, it, we, you, or they. All right. So what we're going to do now is look at some irregular verbs. So there are obviously a couple of irregular verbs that do change depending on who you are talking about. So they might change. Often it's a vowel that they change, or the ending might be slightly different. So here are four very common ones that we see quite a lot. And what I'd like you to do, you might want to pause the video, and I would like you to insert the verb that you can see at the end. So I've given you the verb in the infinitive. Okay, and three out of four of them end in en, luckily, so that helps us recognize that they're in the infinitive. Then we have sein here, which is to be at the end. And I would like you to look at the person, so look at the word at the beginning. Okay, and insert the correct form of the verb into the gap. Okay, for sentence number 2, I've got the little tip for you here that it's meant to be she, not they. So I would maybe pause the video here, have a go at those, pay attention to your verbs and your verb endings, and then we'll talk through the solutions in a second. So let's have a look at the answers to these. So remember, they're all irregular, so they might be verbs that you have to learn a bit more, and you have to keep on top of them regularly because you will see them regularly as well in exams or assessments. So number 1 is isst Kuchen und Kekse. All right, so we've got ist here. We know that when I say ist to you, it could also be the ist with just one S, which means is. Obviously, we're not saying he is cakes and biscuits, but we want to say he eats. So when we want to say he eats or she eats, we need to have two S's there. Okay, otherwise the meaning is lost because, like I said, you will end up saying he is cakes and biscuits, and that is not what we want to do, and we want to make sure we don't fall into that trap. Number 2, like I said, it was she. So we would have sie sieht gern Liebesfilme. So what happens here is there is a change in the vowel. Okay, so we still have the T at the end. Okay, so that's the teacher part of every strict teacher. But sehen changes in the S form into sieht. So we have an I that kind of pops up there. Then we have haben. So sentence number 3, if you are or if you were stuck on this word here, Geschwister, it is not sister, even though it sounds a little bit like it. It's a bit of a false friend, this one. It means siblings. Okay, so this answer here would be du hast keine Geschwister. So what happens here is the B has disappeared and instead we have hast. Obviously, you are going to see a lot of questions in your speaking exams in particular that start with the word hast. What's really important is that you know that you then, when you talk about yourself, give a reply, respond with ich habe. Okay, so keep that one in mind. Keep learning haben as well as the one coming up now, which is sein. which is to be. So that will be wir sind eine kleine Familie. So we are a small family. Okay, so if you notice that you were stuck on any of those verbs, make a note of them and then make sure that you learn them very carefully. You will see them all of the time and you will have to use them all of the time. All right, so let's have a look at these kind of special ones. You will also find examples of these and a good explanation in your workpack. And these are what we call modal verbs. Modal verbs means the way in which we are doing something. So what we will be confronted with here is actually having two verbs in one sentence. Okay, so we might have in the first example not just saying I wear a uniform, but we have the word müssen, which means must or have to. So we've got müssen and we've got tragen, and we actually are asked to say I have to or I must wear a uniform. Okay, then sentence number 2, we've got wollen, which means to want to. So all the ones in the brackets here are the infinitives. They often look very different to the form that you use when you use ich or or man, so one. Then we have können in number 3, which is can or be able to. And then sollen for number 4, which is should. Okay, so a little bit of a challenge here. So you might again want to pause the video, get your exercise book and go through any activities that we did on modal verbs. Again, you will use them right up until the end of year 11. So make sure that if you are struggling with them, you're making a note of it and you are practicing them regularly. All right, so if you want to pause the video here and have a go at the answers, you may do so now. Otherwise, I'm going to go through the answers now. So for number 1, we would do the following. Ich muss eine Uniform tragen. So we have learned the fact that we need to say ich muss, say I must or I have to, and then we need to remember that the thing that we must do, so the second verb, the thing that we're actually doing, is in its infinitive form. You can tell by looking at the fact that it's got en at the end. Okay, so the infinitive goes to the end. Your modal verb, so the way in which you are doing something, goes into the second position. It is the second idea. So number 2 is ich will keine Süßigkeiten essen. Okay, so wollen has turned into will. You might recognize the fact that will is a false friend. It does not mean I will. I will in German is ich werde. Instead it means I want to. So this person is saying I want to eat no more sweets. Okay, so the keine part here, keine at beginning means I don't want to eat any sweets in this case. Then number 3, which turns into kann seine Hausaufgaben machen. He can or he is able to do his homework. So können has gone into can. It looks a lot more recognizable to us because it looks like can, but you need to be able to recognize that können is the infinitive. And then the last one, if you go back to our environmental topic and environmental protection, we had a lot of phrases that started with man. Remember, man in this case does not mean a man, but it's like to say one or the general you. So in order to protect the environment, you should do the following. It doesn't mean that one person that you're talking to, but people in general. So in German, we do that by saying man with just one N. So here we've got man sollte den Müll trennen. Okay. So if you were struggling with those, please make a note of them and get in touch if you do have any questions about those. Okay, so just again to reiterate, if we want to say that we must do something, we want to do something, we can or are able to do something, or we should do something, we have to follow this word order. So the modal verb becomes the kind of dominant verb, meaning it will go into the second idea in this sentence. So it becomes the second idea. The thing that we are doing, so it's like saying, I want to eat something, I want to play something, and so on, is in its infinitive form. So it needs to go to the end, and it often has the form of en. Okay, so that is something that helps you there. Different. The only kind of exceptions are sein. So when you're talking about jobs that you want to do in the future or what you want to be in the future, you might say, Ich will ein Lehrer sein. I want to be a teacher. Okay, but apart from that, they are a really nice way of kind of bumping up your marks because it is a complex structure. So you might want to practice a couple of your own little sentences to have in your arsenal to make your writing better. Okay, so let's finish off with a little delayed dictation again. Same thing that we've done before. I will read some sentences out in German and you must write them down after you have waited 10 seconds. So you are training your brain to kind of retain all that information now and then to produce it onto paper. Just some scrap paper or whiteboard is absolutely fine. All right, if you're ready, then let's make a start of it. I'm going to read out every sentence twice. Pause the video if you want a little bit more time just to keep the sentence in your head. Just try please not to write it down as soon as I'm speaking because you're not going to hear the end of the sentence, and as we've just looked at with the modal verbs, it's very important that the word at the end of the sentence is included and is spelled correctly. So please, whatever you do, make sure you listen right up until the end of the sentence. Okay, sentence number 1. Ich will heute in die Schule gehen. Ich will heute in die Schule gehen. Number 2. Ich kann nicht so viel Pizza essen. Ich kann nicht so viel Pizza essen. Number 3. Ich gehe in Altrincham einkaufen. Ich gehe in Altrincham einkaufen. Wir kaufen ein neues Handy. Wir kaufen ein neues Handy. Ich muss meine Hausaufgaben machen. Ich muss meine Hausaufgaben machen. And the last sentence. Meine Mutter sieht einen Liebesfilm. Meine Mutter sieht einen Liebesfilm. Alright, so feel free to skip back on those if you want to have another go at that task. Make sure you really pay attention to your verbs and your verb endings. They are the focus on what we're doing and they are the basic parts of your successful present tense sentences. So make sure that you listen to the end and you listen very carefully to the verbs. So these are our answers from the delayed dictation. So for number 1, we had Ich will heute, today, in die Schule gehen. So I want to go into school today. Nummer 2, ich kann nicht so viel Pizza essen. I can't eat that much pizza. Nummer 3, ich gehe in Altrincham einkaufen. I go shopping in Altrincham. Nummer 4. Wir kaufen, make sure your kaufen has got en at the end. Wir kaufen ein neues Handy. Number 5 is ich muss meine Hausaufgaben machen. I must make or do my homework. And the last one, meine Mutter sieht einen Liebesfilm. My mother watches a love film. This one, remember, has got a irregular verb, so we've got sieht here. So whilst you might say ich sehe einen Liebesfilm, when you're talking about the third person or someone else, you must use sieht. So just like we've done before, take or fix your sentences in a different colour, correct them so it really stands out for you. Have a look at the ones that you need to practice. So it might be that you're struggling when it's another person other than ich, or that you need to have another look at sentence number 2 and 5, which use modal verbs. 1, 2 and 5 actually. All of them use modal verbs, so you might want to practice them or make those your target for when we return in school and work on those. What you can do now is leave the screen up as it is here, translate the sentences, then skip back and check your translations. Then just look at the English of what you've just written and translate them back into German and check. So that way you are getting used to the different word order in German and hopefully improve your accuracy as a result. Okay, again, if you have any questions, remember you can speak to us at any point, send us an email or get in touch with your tutor. Please make use and take advantage of the Zoom drop-ins. If you do have a particular question, just make sure that you've got your question prepared so that you know what you're going into the Zoom meeting for. Okay, I hope you're doing well and see you very soon. Bye bye.